church. In that article, he said, you should always go to church. You might not necessarily hear a good sermon, but you almost surely will hear a sermon from a good man who, along with his good wife, have worked all week long tirelessly to be a blessing to the people. And that's true. Might not always be a good sermon, but we're a relatively decent couple that love you. Theodore Roosevelt. Sergeant York. Andrew Dillon. Who was Sergeant York? Huh? Never heard of him. That's why I'm preaching. Now you listen. He was a great hero of World War I. He was the most decorated American soldier of World War I. Captured a whole company of Germans by himself with one rifle. You know, I've often wondered about that. He's got one rifle, and there's 100 Germans. Why didn't they just run him over? He surrounded them. Yeah. Sergeant York, great American hero. Lucky Lindy. Cody, you know who that was? Lucky Lindy? Charles Lindbergh? Charles Lindbergh. Charles Lindbergh was the first man to solo fly the Atlantic Ocean. That's nothing. Nothing. Everybody that tried it before him became fish bait. The night before he was to go, it rained all night long. The field that he was to leave from was a dirt field up in New York. That meant that the field was going to be with mud, and it was going to be hard for the plane to build up speed. And at the end of the runway were these telephone lines that the plane could get hung up in. And the question was, should he go? Should he not go? All night long it rained. He heard the rain on the roof. And he's laying there. He can't sleep for the anticipation. So now we've had a 24-hour period where the man has not slept. He didn't sleep during the day. He can't sleep at night. He's going to leave in the morning. So he leaves. He is able to clear, barely. I've seen the actual movie footage of it. Barely clears the wires. And he's off for 30-some hours. Now, if you've ever driven, like Robert, who drives a truck, maybe he's had to drive like long distances and stuff, you know. But, I mean, about 16 hours into a driving trip, you're just fighting everything you got to stay awake. And many a time I've been doing that, and I didn't stay awake. And only the angelic protection of God would touch me on the side of the head, and power would go all the way through me and wake me up. It's just horrible. That's a horrible feeling, trying to stay awake. He went to sleep twice. And one time, he woke up, he was just off the surface of the ocean. But he did it. The Lone Eagle landed at that airport outside of Paris, and the people mobbed him after being awake for almost well over 40 hours. American hero. He didn't always handle himself well afterwards, but he was a hero for his courage and his strength. Amelia Earhart. Have you seen that commercial that they're playing for the internet? You know, they got this guy walking onto this island out there, and he says, I have just discovered something great. He's out in the island on the Pacific, and there in the background is Amelia Earhart's airplane, supposedly. And he's all concerned about having found the internet out there, and nobody's ever been able to find Amelia Earhart because she went down doing a world solo trip. But I remember we were out at Purdue University in Indiana with the kids for International Convention, and in one of the dorms they had a huge picture of Amelia Earhart because she had graduated from Purdue University. What courage and strength to do that at a time when women were thought evil of if they even had a pair of pants on. And she had a flight suit on, flight pants and everything, and was flying airplanes. Oh, no woman should ever be doing that. Strength, courage. Amelia Earhart. Clara Barton, the angel of the battlefield. Red Cross. Carrie Nation. Remember Carrie Nation? During the struggle for Prohibition, Carrie Nation would take her hatchet and go into the bars and beat up the beer barrels and they'd throw her in jail, and she'd get out and go back and beat up some more beer barrels and stuff. Carrie Nation. And Eleanor Roosevelt. You know, Eleanor Roosevelt did not have it easy. Her husband was unfaithful to her on more than one occasion. He didn't treat her with necessarily the love that she needed, but she cared about people. And at a time when it was very unusual for the First Lady of the United States to go out and to do things, she went to the mines. She went to the poor sections of cities. She went to people that were downtrodden and abused. And she did everything she could within her power to help them, even up to the time when she was old and was representing the United States of America as our ambassador to the United Nations. This is a fine woman. Bob Corson, who used to be the head guidance counselor at Memorial in Millville, I went to him and I said, "You've heard of Dr. Maslow's 6 basic needs, haven't you?" He says, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Do you have them?" He says, "Yeah, I got them." And he gave them to me. And I said, "Well, what is this one here, this self-actualization need, this last one?" He said, "Well, Woody, the best way I can't really define that to you, but maybe I could do the best by just telling you who I thought was the most self-actualized person I ever knew about." And he said, that was Eleanor Roosevelt, because she lived her life not for herself, but to help and to serve others. A hero of this nation. Alan Shepard. Andrew, who was Alan Shepard? I'm just going to embarrass these two guys. The rest of you said easy. Okay? Alan Shepard was the first American to go into space. Wasn't a very long ride. But can you imagine crawling into a little tiny capsule on top of a guided missile and being launched into space and then believing that a parachute is going to open up and get you back to Earth safely? No, I could not have done it. I don't even want to get on an airplane. Alan Shepard, first American in space. John Glenn? John Glenn? First American to orbit the Earth. We were coming back with the kids from International Convention, and out in Ohio, out by Zanesville, there was a big sign on the road that said, "The home of John," and I forget what his wife's name was. Shirley? I don't know. Shirley Glenn. And, of course, he's a senator. I guess he's still a senator to the United States. I don't know. But the courage that it takes. What would it have been like to have been on Apollo 13? Or Neil Armstrong. I never got a lot of that first walk on the moon because I was walking on foreign turf. I was in An Khe, South Vietnam, whenever that happened, so we didn't get the news until much later. But what heroes, what courage and what strength these people have to do these things. Audie Murphy? Audie Murphy? No Audie Murphy? You ever watch the movie To Hell and Back? No? It's a good movie. You could get it. It is the life story of Audie Murphy. He was just a little Texas farm boy and went into the Army at the time of World War II, and he finds himself over in Italy and then in Germany, and his unit comes under fire. There's a tank that's out there. It's been hit. It's burning. But the Germans are coming to overrun his unit, and Audie runs back, gets on top of the tank, and wipes out the entire German company that's coming at him. He is the most decorated man in World War II. And he is buried just across the street from the tomb of the unknown soldier. He came back and became a movie star, starred in his own movie, To Hell and Back. And he was killed in a plane crash and is buried right down there by the ship, the crow's nest of the Maine. Maine was the ship that was blown up in Havana Harbor that started the Spanish-American War. Audie Murphy. Chief Joseph. Chief Joseph was the chief of the Nez Perce Indians. You say, the Nez Perce Indians, who were they? They were the people that gave us the Appaloosa horse. The Appaloosa horse is the horse